welcome to the UFC, to Shoot the Box's own former FFC welterweight champ. We're talking about the Machine, Bert Kreischer. No, Merabdashvili. No, we're talking about Rolando Bedoya, another Peruvian fighter in the UFC. You love to see it. Daniel Marcos looks great. He's got a big fight that just got booked. And we also have Claudio Poyes out of the country. Now all of a sudden, Rolando Bedoya out of Shoot the Box gets to make that debut against a guy who has UFC experience and some big wins in Khaos Williams. So kind of crazy to see that. You have Phil Hawes, who's 4-2 in the UFC, taking on Ikram Aliskerov in his debut. Khaos Williams is also 4-2 in the UFC, taking on a debuting fighter. Coming off a pretty long layoff is Rolando Bedoya. And Matt, when I go down through it and I look at this fight, are both guys primary strikers? You bet they are. And do they like to just stand in the pocket and eat and throw punches? You bet they do. So we got a couple of lunch pail fighters in there this weekend. And I know if fans don't know Bedoya, but they might be somewhat familiar with Khaos Kalen, the Oxfighter Williams, they know that this is going to be a good fight. So you can fill them in a little bit on a guy like Bedoya, because going back and watching the tape study, I was whelmed, but I was excited about this fight.
I am really excited about this fight because there's a really high probability it ends inside the distance. But there is a significant difference between these two fighters, and it is Bedoya, I would say, is more hittable. Not that Khaos Williams is unhittable by any stretch, but we have seen Khaos Williams almost go into that Yoel Romero version. You know what I mean? Where it's all offense and then all defense. And for Williams, his defense isn't terrible. Like, he does keep his hands very high. He does swat away and parry shots, but the activity can get him caught. And if Bedoya is a guy who's crashing for it like he has done in the past, and if he is brawling, he might just force the fight enough to a guy like Khaos Williams to where that defense isn't enough to evade some of those shots. But if Williams is able to just defend 2 or 3 out of the 5 and answer with 1 or 2 of his own, we have seen how devastating of a puncher Khaos Williams is. It kind of reminds me, remember when Jeremy Stevens had that really famous quote of, "Hey, I'm the hardest hitter at 145. You know, he wasn't necessarily wrong, right? Like, if Jeremy Stevens and Conor McGregor both just hauled off and hit something, I'm not convinced Jeremy Stevens would hit that much lesser than Conor McGregor. My point is, if Khaos Williams said that at a press conference, like, I'm the hardest hitter at 170, I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh no, you're wrong, like you're overhyping yourself. Like, when Williams is really letting his hands go and when he's able to connect on some of those inside shots, his punching power is equal to pretty much anybody's in the division.
I mean, Khaos Williams, if you do consider it, those little periods of time that are off. I mean, his fight that he had against Randy Brown, there was a little bit of it there. The win that he had against Matt Semmelsberger, there was a little bit of it there.
Exactly.
I'm not saying he needs to go out there and dust guys every time like he did when he came into the UFC, just finishing everything that stepped in front of him.
No fight.
But when you look at it for a guy like Khaos Williams, he's definitely refined things a little bit. And if he decided to kind of open up a little bit more in a matchup like this, we'll see what happens. I mean, Bedoya is one of those guys, 14-1, trains at a premier gym. Charles Oliveira, Daniel Santos is also on this card. And was Rolando Bedoya in that infamous sauna scene picture over in Fight Island? You bet your ass he had that blonde hair, sweating it out with the boys. He's there for the team. He's a ride or die. But when you look at a guy like Bedoya, Matt, this is where it gets a little weird. So 14-1, 7 wins by decision, 7 wins by finish. The average, or at least the combined opponent record, 57-29. That's good.
It is.
Weighted by the last 2 wins. I mean, he had a win over a 17-6 Otalara, whose best win was a 9-2 fighter who had only beaten 2 winning fighters. See, when you dive into the weeds, it gets a little chintzy. The other win that he has over 10-1 fighter in Dorta, who's a former featherweight. So it's a little weird that way. Then you go back through and you watch these Bedoya fights. They're easy to find. They're out there on YouTube with FFC and some other promotions. I mean, beating Enrique Granados Ferreira, who was 8-4, beating Washington Nunes, who was 7-4 back, almost 4 years ago, and then Otalara, and then Dorta. If you go back and watch those fights, Bedoya holds his hands at about chest height, and I have it written in big letters, good chin, gets hit a lot.
That's the problem. Do you want to be known for having a good chin when you fight Khaos Williams? Like, is that what your coaches are telling you? Hey, we're fighting Khaos Williams. We want you to show off that good chin. No, nobody would ever say that in the history of ever. That's why, again, to open this, I really wanted to stress, when Williams is off, let's say, when he's not fighting at his peak, the hands are at least still up. The defense is still somewhat sound. Whereas for Bedoya, it's still him getting hit by clean shots, and that's the big differentiator between these two.
Yeah, I mean, going back and watching Bedoya, like, he throws throws a really good leg kick. He'll switch stance. He'll throw it to the body. He'll throw it to the head. I love 3-level kickers. He has that resolve to bite down in the mouthpiece. Instead of biting down in the mouthpiece, he smiles big time and drops his hands more when he gets hit and invites the brawl. So then the fighters push him up against the cage, and then he can work in some different areas of his game because he is a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. He is a guy like Bedoya. He's coming off of, again, a really long layoff, so it's kind of a surprise signing. It's almost like, hey, you might have gone on Contender Series just to get a tune-up to come in, but now all of a sudden he gets Khaos Williams, who's about a 3-1 favorite in the matchup. We have a look at the Topology votes. Surprise to us as they are to you. I'm going to say over-under 77.5% Williams.
I think they'll be over.
I think they're going to be over. They are over. 753 total votes, 87% Williams, 84% by knockout. For the 13% that have Bedoya, 51% by decision. Matt, again, Bedoya is good in some of those in-betweens. He does invite a lot of that brawl. But that's what I have a hard time with. I mean, he could have gone out there. He's a young guy at 26, just like a Fernando Padilla. You take the time away, you increase your skills at a great gym like Shoot the Box, and you're able to come out here and look really good. Implement those kicks, throw Williams off his game plan, force him to switch stances, then you're off to the races. But my lord, when you start with your hands right here and you eat power hooks against lesser competition, I don't see Bedoya getting the win in this matchup. However, I've been surprised by debuting fighters lately, like Alexeva, like some of these debuting fighters, like Bedoya's main training partner, Elvis Brenner. I never thought Brenner was going to beat Takugov, and I don't think he beat Takugov, but still, that's a win on the record. If Bedoya won, it would surprise me, but I've been surprised lately.
I think he could win a decision, oddly enough. It's always weird to say that, you know, when the debuting fighter could win the fight where it goes the latest, because you assume the person with the more high-level experience would be favored in a setting like that. But if we do get that weird version of Williams where he does have the high shell, he's not throwing a lot of output, and if knockdowns or significant strikes aren't really counting for enough on his part, I could see a world where Bedoya is able to just rack up a lot of volume, but I agree with everything you said. I do like Khaos Williams quite a bit in the matchup.
Eager to see these two guys square off when it comes up on Friday. It's a big-time matchup. Let us know if you have the machine, Bedoya, or if you're going with the Oxfighter, Williams. Some big-time fights left on this card, including a title fight at the top that you're not going to want to miss. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.